The deep caves of planet Altara Prime had been silent for thousands of years. Dr. Kim Day walked slowly through the dark tunnels with his team of space explorers. They had come to this distant world to study the ruins of an ancient alien city. For 3 months they had been digging through old buildings and broken statues. They found many interesting things, but nothing truly amazing. Day was a patient man who loved learning about old civilizations. He had studied alien cultures on 7 different planets. His job was to find artifacts and learn how ancient people lived. He never expected to find something alive in these caves. The tunnel they walked through was made of strange crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. Day carried a bright lamp that cut through the darkness ahead. Behind him walked his partner Dr. Park Jisoo and 3 other scientists from Earth. "The readings are getting stronger," Jisoo said as she looked at her scanner. "There is definitely something large down here. Something very large." They had been following energy signals for 2 hours. The signals led them deeper into the mountain than any human had gone before. The walls around them were covered with alien writing that nobody could read. Pictures of strange creatures were carved into the stone. "Look at this," called out Dr. Song Minho from behind them. He was pointing at a carving on the wall. "This looks like some kind of dragon or serpent, but it has features I have never seen before." The carving showed a massive creature with wings and 4 legs. Its body was long like a snake but thick like an elephant. Most interesting were the scales that seemed to shine even in the old stone carving. "The locals told us stories about dragons," Day said, "but we thought they were just myths and legends. Every planet has dragon stories." They continued walking deeper into the cave system. The air grew warmer as they went down. Strange smells filled the tunnel. It smelled like old metal and something else they could not identify. The walls became smoother and the crystal formations grew larger. After another hour of walking, they reached a massive chamber. Day stopped at the entrance and shined his light around the enormous space. The room was bigger than a football stadium. The ceiling disappeared into darkness high above them. Pillars of glowing crystal reached from floor to ceiling like frozen waterfalls. "My God," whispered Jisoo. "This place is incredible." But Day was not looking at the beautiful crystals. His light had found something else in the center of the chamber. Something that made his heart race with excitement and fear. There, in the middle of the great room, lay a mountain of white scales. At first he thought it was a hill or rock formation, but as his eyes adjusted, he could see the regular pattern of overlapping scales. He could see the curve of a massive spine. He could see what looked like folded wings. "Is that what I think it is?" asked Dr. Lee Kwan, the team's equipment specialist. Dai stepped closer with his light held high. The beam revealed more details of the incredible creature. It was definitely alive. He could see the slow rise and fall of breathing. Each breath was so large it moved tons of weight up and down. The dragon was coiled around one of the crystal pillars like a cat sleeping in sunshine. But this cat was 200 meters long from nose to tail. Its head alone was bigger than their research vehicle. The scales that covered its body had once been pure white, but now they were covered with dirt and grime. "It looks like it has been sleeping here for a very long time," Jisoo said quietly. "Look at all the dust and mineral deposits on its scales." She was right. The magnificent creature was covered in thousands of years of cave dust. Mineral water had dripped on it and dried into crusty patches. Strange growths and crystals had formed on its hide. What should have been beautiful white scales looked gray and dirty. "Should we wake it up?" asked Minho nervously. Before anyone could answer, the question was decided for them. One massive eye opened slowly. It was bigger than a dinner plate and filled with swirling silver light. The eye focused on Day and his team with ancient intelligence. The humans froze like deer caught in headlights. None of them moved or breathed. They waited to see what this enormous creature would do. When the dragon spoke, it was not with sound, but with thoughts that appeared directly in their minds. The voice was deep and sad and tired beyond measure. "Humans," the voice said in their heads. "I am called Bekho. I have been sleeping in this place since my people died. Why have you come to disturb my rest?" Day found his courage and stepped forward. "We are explorers and scientists from Earth. We came here to study the ruins of your civilization. We never expected to find anyone still alive." The great head lifted slightly and turned to look at them better. More dust and debris fell from the dragon's neck as he moved. "My people have been gone for 3,000 of your years. I am the last of the Lumina. I remained here to guard what little survived of our knowledge. 3,000 years, Jisoo repeated in amazement. You have been alone here for 3,000 years. Time means little when you have lost everything worth living for, Baeko replied. I sleep and I remember and I wait for the final darkness to take me as well. Day looked at this incredible being with growing sadness. Here was a creature of obvious intelligence and dignity, who had given up hope. The magnificent dragon was like a priceless work of art that had been left to decay in an abandoned museum. When did you last take care of yourself? Day asked gently. If dragons could laugh, Baeko would have laughed. Care for myself? Why would I do such a thing? There is no one left to see me, no one left to care what I look like. But you are magnificent, Day said. Even covered in all this grime, I can see how beautiful you must be underneath. Beautiful, the dragon repeated. I had forgotten that word. I had forgotten many things about living instead of merely existing. Day looked around at his team and then back at the lonely dragon. An idea was forming in his mind. It was a crazy idea that would sound insane to most people, but sometimes crazy ideas were exactly what the universe needed. Baeko, he said, what would you say if I offered to help you get clean again? Baeko stared at Day for a long moment after hearing the human's offer. The dragon's massive eye blinked slowly as if he was trying to understand what had just been said to him. You want to help me get clean? Baeko repeated in their minds. Human, do you understand how large I am? I am not a small creature that can be washed in a basin of water. Day walked closer to the dragon's enormous head. He had to crane his neck back to look into that giant silver eye. I can see exactly how big you are. But humans are good at solving problems. We just need the right tools and enough time. Dr. Park Jisoo grabbed Day's arm and pulled him aside. She whispered urgently, even though she knew the dragon could probably hear everything they said. Day, have you lost your mind? That creature is longer than 2 city blocks. How could we possibly give it a bath? We do it one section at a time, Day replied calmly. We bring in industrial cleaning equipment. Pressure washers, scrubbing tools, cleaning solutions. It will take time, but it can be done. Dr. Song Minho stepped forward with his scanner still beeping. The readings I am getting are incredible. This creature's biology is unlike anything we have ever seen. His scales contain crystalline structures that seem to store information. Information? Day asked with growing excitement. What kind of information? I cannot be sure without closer examination. But it appears that each scale might contain data. Memories, perhaps, or scientific knowledge. Minho looked up at the dragon. Sir, if I may ask, what exactly are your scales? Baeko's mental voice carried a note of surprise. You can detect the memory crystals in my scales. Your technology is more advanced than I expected. The dragon shifted slightly, causing a small avalanche of dust to fall. Each of my scales contains the preserved knowledge of my people. I am a living library of everything the Lumina ever learned. The humans looked at each other with amazement. This was bigger than just finding an ancient dragon. They had discovered the preserved knowledge of an entire advanced civilization. All the more reason to get you cleaned up properly, Day said with determination. We are not just talking about helping you feel better. We are talking about preserving the most important historical discovery in human history. Dr. Lee Kwan had been quietly examining the chamber around them. The logistics are challenging but not impossible, he said. We would need to bring in heavy equipment, set up a proper cleaning facility. It would be like restoring an ancient monument, except the monument is alive and willing to cooperate, added Jisoo with a smile. That should make things easier. Baeko watched the humans discuss their plan with growing interest. You are serious about this, he said. You truly want to spend your time and effort to clean an old dragon. You are not just an old dragon, Dee replied firmly. You are the keeper of an entire civilization's knowledge. You are a living treasure that deserves to be treated with respect and care. The dragon was quiet for several minutes. When he finally spoke, his mental voice was softer than before. It has been 3,000 years since anyone showed me kindness. I had forgotten what it felt like to have someone care about my well-being. Then it is definitely time for a change, Day said. Will you let us help you? Yes, Baeko replied. But I warn you, this will not be a simple task. Some of these mineral deposits have been building up for centuries. The dust and grime goes very deep. Day grinned and patted his equipment bag. Lucky for you, humans specialize in cleaning things that seem impossible to clean. We will figure it out. The next 3 days were spent planning and organizing. Day sent urgent messages back to the main research station requesting supplies. The list was so unusual that the supply officers thought it was a joke at first. 6 industrial pressure washers, Jisoo read from the list. 40 barrels of biodegradable cleaning solution. Scaffolding equipment rated for extreme heights. Protective gear for working with unknown alien biology. Water recycling units. She looked up at Day. They are going to think we have gone crazy. Let them think what they want, Day replied as he continued planning. When word gets out about what we found here, everyone will understand. Dr. Minho had been scanning different sections of the dragon's body with his instruments. The scale structure is incredibly complex, he reported. Each scale overlaps with its neighbors in a precise pattern. We will need to be very careful not to damage the connections between them. What happens if we damage a scale? Asked Kwan. Unknown, Minho admitted. But given that each scale contains stored information, damaging one might be like destroying a book in a library. We could lose knowledge that can never be replaced. Bekho had been listening to their discussions with interest. Your concern for preserving my people's knowledge honors their memory, he said. I will do everything I can to help you understand my biology. Together we can ensure that nothing important is lost. The supply transport arrived on the 4th day. The cargo pilot was completely bewildered by the unusual equipment request, but he did his job without asking too many questions. However, he did take pictures of the cleaning supplies being unloaded in the middle of an archaeological dig site. This is either going to be the most successful scientific project of the century or the most expensive practical joke in history, the pilot muttered as he watched the scientists excitedly unpack pressure washers and scrubbing equipment. Day supervised the transport of equipment down into the crystal chamber. The dragon watched with growing amusement as humans set up cleaning stations around his massive form. I must admit, Bekho said, in all my long life I never imagined I would see the day when a team of scientists would prepare to give me a bath. Just wait, Day replied as he tested the pressure settings on the first washer. By the time we are finished, you are going to shine like a star. Jisoo finished setting up the water recycling system and looked up at the enormous task ahead of them. Well, team, she said, I guess it is time to make history. Let us clean ourselves a dragon. As the first spray of water hit Bekho's scales, 3,000 years of accumulated grime began to wash away, and with it, the dragon's long journey back to dignity and purpose began. The first spray of water hit Bekho's scales and created a cloud of ancient dust that filled the crystal chamber. Dee had to step back and wait for the air to clear before he could see what he had accomplished. When the dust settled, he could hardly believe what he saw. Where dirty gray scales had been before, now there was a small patch of brilliant white that seemed to glow with inner light. The scales were not just clean, they were beautiful beyond description. Each one caught the light from the crystal walls and reflected it back in rainbow patterns. Incredible, whispered Dr. Song Minho as he aimed his scanner at the cleaned section. The crystalline structure is even more complex than I thought. These scales are not just storing information, they are actively processing it. Bekho felt the cool water wash away centuries of accumulated grime and let out a long breath that had been held for far too long. I had forgotten, he said softly in their minds. I had forgotten how it felt to be clean. Day adjusted his pressure washer and continued working on the dragon's massive foreleg. He had developed a system that seemed to work well. First, he would spray a section with cleaning solution and let it sit for 15 minutes. Then he would use the pressure washer to remove the loosened dirt and grime. For stubborn spots, he used soft brushes and patient scrubbing. This is going to take longer than we thought, said Dr. Park Jisoo as she looked at the enormous task ahead of them. At this rate, it will take months to clean him completely. Good things take time, Dee replied without stopping his work. Besides, I think our friend here is worth the effort. The dragon turned his great head to watch Dee work. Young human, why are you doing this for me? You barely know me. Why do you care so much about an old creature like myself? Day paused in his scrubbing to look up at Bekho. Because everyone deserves to feel good about themselves. Because you have been alone and sad for far too long. And because underneath all this dirt is something amazing that the universe needs to see. Dr. Lee Kwan had rigged up a scaffolding system that allowed them to reach higher sections of the dragon's body. The engineering challenges are fascinating, he said as he tested the stability of his platforms. We are essentially performing maintenance on a living mountain. By the end of the first week, they had cleaned about 10 square meters of dragon hide. It was slow work, but the results were spectacular. Each section they finished revealed scales that were like living jewels. The white was not simple white, but contained hints of silver and pearl and crystal that shifted as the dragon moved. More importantly, Bekho himself was beginning to change. The dragon, who had seemed tired and defeated when they first met, was now showing signs of life and interest. He asked questions about human culture and technology. He told stories about his people and their ancient civilization. The Lumina were builders and dreamers, Bekho explained as Day worked on a particularly stubborn patch of mineral deposits. We shaped light itself into tools and art. We could travel between stars by bending space around our ships. What happened to them? Asked Jisoo gently. How did such an advanced people disappear? The dragon was quiet for a long time before answering. A darkness came from beyond the edge of the galaxy. It consumed light and life wherever it went. My people chose to sacrifice themselves rather than let their knowledge fall into such evil hands. They used their final energy to hide their most important discoveries in my scales. The humans worked in respectful silence after hearing this story. They were not just cleaning a dragon, they were helping to preserve the last remnant of a noble civilization. News of their project had begun to spread beyond their small team. Other scientists at the research station were requesting permission to observe the work. The planetary government wanted daily reports. Even Earth itself was taking notice of what they were doing. Dr. Chen wants to send a full xenobiology team, Jisoo informed Dai as she read the latest messages from headquarters. They want to study Bekho's biology in detail. What do you think? Day asked the dragon. Are you comfortable with more humans studying you? Bekho considered the question carefully. If they come with the same respect and kindness that you have shown, then they are welcome. It would be good to share my people's knowledge with those who can appreciate it. Dr. Minho had made remarkable discoveries during his scans of the cleaned areas. Each scale contains what appears to be quantum-level information storage, he explained excitedly. The amount of data that could be stored in his entire hide is beyond our ability to calculate. I am a living library, Bekho confirmed. Every book, every scientific discovery, every work of art that my people created is preserved somewhere on my body. But the information can only be accessed when the scales are clean and properly maintained. This revelation added new urgency to their work. They were not just helping a lonely creature feel better about himself. They were uncovering a treasure trove of knowledge that could advance human understanding by thousands of years. Day worked late into the night, carefully cleaning each scale with the patience of a master craftsman restoring a priceless painting. The repetitive work was almost meditative. He found himself thinking about the responsibility they had undertaken. Are you tired? Bekho asked as he noticed Day working long after the others had gone to rest. A little, Day admitted, but this work is important. Every scale we clean brings back a piece of your people's legacy, and every scale you clean brings back a piece of my own dignity, the dragon replied gratefully. I had not realized how much I missed feeling proud of my appearance. As Day packed up his equipment for the night, he looked at the progress they had made. Several sections of brilliant white scales now gleamed in the crystal chamber's soft light. It was beautiful, but it was only the beginning. Tomorrow we start on your shoulder, Day told the dragon. I have a feeling that is going to be even more spectacular. Bekho settled into a more comfortable position, careful not to disturb the cleaning equipment around him. I find myself looking forward to tomorrow, he said with wonder in his mental voice. I had forgotten what it felt like to have something to anticipate. 3 weeks had passed since the cleaning project began, and the crystal chamber had become a very different place. What started as a quiet archaeological site was now buzzing with activity as more scientists arrived from across the galaxy to witness the remarkable transformation taking place. Dr. Kim Day looked up from his work to see another transport ship landing outside the cave entrance. This was the 5th ship to arrive in just 2 days. Word had spread throughout human space about the ancient dragon who was being restored to his former glory by a small team of dedicated researchers. Another group of visitors, announced Dr. Park Jisoo as she checked the arrival schedule on her tablet. This time it is a xenobiology team from the University of New Tokyo and 3 journalists from Galactic News Network. Bekho lifted his massive head and looked toward the cave entrance where the new arrivals would soon appear. Nearly a quarter of his body had been cleaned now, and the transformation was stunning. The sections that had been restored gleamed like living starlight, creating patterns of beauty that left even Experienced scientists speechless. I find it amusing that I have become famous again, the dragon said to Day as the human continued his careful work on a section near the shoulder. 3,000 years ago I was known throughout the galaxy as the guardian of the Lumina. Now I am known as the dragon who got a bath. Day smiled as he scrubbed away a particularly stubborn patch of mineral buildup. You are much more than that, and everyone knows it. You are becoming a symbol of hope and renewal. People across human space are following your story. The truth of this was evident in the messages that arrived daily from around the galaxy. Children sent drawings of clean white dragons. Scientists requested permission to study samples of the cleaning process. Government officials wanted to establish formal diplomatic relations with the last of the Lumina. Dr. Song Minho had become the unofficial spokesman for the project, giving daily briefings to the growing crowd of observers. The quantum information storage in his scales represents technology that is centuries ahead of our current understanding. He explained to the latest group of arrivals. We are not just cleaning a dragon, we are uncovering the greatest scientific discovery in human history. But for all the excitement and attention, the real magic was happening in the quiet moments between Day and Baekho. Their friendship had grown stronger with each passing day. The dragon had begun to share not just the technical knowledge of his people, but their stories, their dreams, and their hopes for the future. My people believe that knowledge should be shared freely, Baekho explained as Day worked on cleaning the intricate patterns around one of his wing joints. They would be pleased to know that their discoveries will help other species reach for the stars. Tell me more about them, Day said as he carefully brushed away centuries of accumulated dust. What were they like as individuals, not just as a civilization? Baekho's mental voice carried warmth as he spoke of his memories. They were curious like humans, always asking questions and seeking answers. They loved beauty and created art that could make viewers weep with joy. But most of all, they believed in the power of kindness to transform the universe. Dr. Li Quan had expanded his scaffolding system to allow access to even the highest parts of the dragon's body. Never thought I would be building construction equipment for dragon maintenance, he joked, as he tested the stability of a new platform. But this is definitely the most meaningful project I have ever worked on. The cleaning process had revealed amazing details about Lumina biology and technology. Each scale was not just beautiful but functional. Some scales could generate light, others could process information, and still others could manipulate energy in ways that human science was only beginning to understand. Look at this, called out Dr. Park Jisoo as she examined a freshly cleaned section with her scanner. These scales along his spine are connected to what appears to be a biological computer network. His entire nervous system is integrated with quantum processing capabilities. Baekho turned his great head to look at the excited scientist. The young doctor is correct. My people designed their guardians to be living repositories of knowledge. My body is both biological and technological, capable of storing and processing information on scales you cannot yet imagine. The implications of this discovery were staggering. Representatives from universities across human space were requesting access to study the dragon. The military wanted to understand the defensive capabilities. Medical researchers were interested in the biological aspects. Everyone wanted to learn from this living treasure. But despite all the attention and scientific interest, Day never lost sight of the personal relationship he had built with Baekho. Every morning he would greet the dragon like an old friend. Every evening they would talk about the day's progress and share stories from their different worlds. You know, Baekho said one evening as they watched the sunset paint the crystal walls in shades of gold and red, I never expected to care about my appearance again. For 3,000 years I thought such things were meaningless vanity. And now, Day asked as he packed up his cleaning equipment for the day, now I realize that taking care of yourself is not vanity, it is self-respect. It is a way of honoring who you are and what you represent. The dragon's cleaned scales caught the evening light and reflected it in dancing patterns across the chamber walls. You have given me back more than just clean scales, my friend. You have given me back my dignity. The evening news broadcasts across human space featured updates on the dragon cleaning project. Children in schools learned about Baekho and the lost civilization of the Lumina. Artists created paintings inspired by the beautiful patterns of his scales. Musicians composed songs about friendship between species. We are making more than just scientific history, Jisoo observed as she read the latest reports from Earth. We are creating a cultural phenomenon. This project is inspiring people across the galaxy. Good, said Day as he looked at the magnificent creature who had become his closest friend. The universe could use more stories about kindness and compassion. Maybe our work here will inspire others to help those in need. As night fell over Altara Prime, the cleaned sections of Bekho's body began to glow softly with their own inner light. The chamber filled with gentle luminescence that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of the dragon's great heart. Tomorrow we start on your back, Day told his friend. I think that is going to be the most challenging section yet. I have complete confidence in you, Bekho replied with deep contentment in his mental voice. Together we will restore what was lost and create something new and wonderful. 2 months had passed since Dr. Kim Day first offered to help clean the ancient dragon. The crystal chamber that had once been silent for thousands of years was now filled with the sounds of gentle activity and quiet conversation. Nearly half of Bekho's massive body gleamed with restored beauty, creating a sight so magnificent that visitors often stood speechless when they first saw him. Day paused in his work and stepped back to admire their progress. The dragon's neck and front legs now shined like polished pearls, reflecting the crystal chamber's light in dancing rainbows across the walls. Each scale was perfect, catching and bending light in ways that seemed almost magical. You look incredible, Day told his friend with genuine admiration. I cannot believe you stayed hidden under all that grime for so long. Bekho lifted his great head and looked at his cleaned body with wonder. The transformation was not just physical but emotional. Where once he had been a creature consumed by grief and loneliness, now he was beginning to remember what it felt like to have purpose and hope. I had forgotten the joy of simply existing, the dragon said softly in their minds. For 3,000 years I believed my only purpose was to guard the knowledge of my dead people. Now I am beginning to think there might be more to life than just remembering the past. Dr. Park Jisoo approached with her scanner beeping excitedly. Day, you need to see these readings. The quantum activity in the cleaned scales is increasing dramatically. It is like they are waking up after a long sleep. Dr. Song Minho hurried over with his own instruments. The information storage systems are definitely becoming more active. We are detecting data streams that we could not see before. It is as if the cleaning process is reactivating dormant systems. Bekho turned his attention to the excited scientists. That is exactly what is happening. My people designed the Guardian scales to remain dormant when not properly maintained. As you clean away the accumulated dirt and damage, you are restoring the connection between my biological systems and the stored knowledge. This revelation sent waves of excitement through the scientific community that had gathered around the project. Representatives from the Galaxy Research Council had arrived the previous week to observe the work. Government officials from 12 different worlds wanted to establish formal contact with the last Lumina. What does this mean exactly? Asked Dr. Chen Wei, the lead xenobiologist from Earth who had arrived with the latest group of observers. Are you saying that cleaning your scales gives you access to information that was previously locked away? Much more than that, Bekho replied with growing excitement in his mental voice. As more of my body is restored, I am remembering things that I had thought lost forever. Scientific discoveries, cultural treasures, even the locations of hidden Lumina settlements that might still contain artifacts. The chamber fell silent as everyone processed this incredible news. They were not just cleaning a dragon and preserving knowledge. They were potentially unlocking the secrets to finding lost Lumina cities and technology throughout the galaxy. Day continued his patient work on a section of the dragon's shoulder, but his mind was racing with the implications. Bekho, are you saying there might be other places where your people hid things? Other survivors, perhaps? No other survivors, the dragon said sadly. I am truly the last of my kind, but there are hidden vaults and research stations scattered across many worlds. Places where my people stored their greatest discoveries before the final darkness came. Dr. Li Quan looked up from the scaffolding he was adjusting. How many locations are we talking about? Bekho was quiet for several minutes as cleaned scales throughout his body pulsed with soft light. The dragon appeared to be accessing information that had been locked away for millennia. 17 major research facilities, he finally answered. 43 smaller outposts. And 3 great libraries that contain the complete cultural heritage of the Lumina civilization, all hidden and protected by technology that your science is only beginning to understand. The news sent shockwaves through the assembled scientists and government officials. This was no longer just an archaeological discovery. It was potentially the greatest treasure hunt in galactic history. The knowledge and technology hidden in those lost luminosites could transform civilization itself. But even as excitement built around them, Day remained focused on his work and his friendship with the dragon. "How do you feel about all this attention?" he asked Bekho quietly. "Does it bother you that everyone wants something from you?" The dragon considered the question carefully. "At first I was overwhelmed. For so long I had been alone with my grief. Now suddenly I am surrounded by beings who want to learn from me and work with me." Bekho paused as another section of scales began to glow softly. "But I realize this is what my people would have wanted. They believed knowledge should be shared, not hoarded." Dr. Jisoo had been monitoring communications from across human space. "The response to your story is incredible," she told both Day and Bekho. "Children in schools are learning about the Lumina. Artists are creating works inspired by your scales. Some humans are even starting their own projects to help other neglected or forgotten beings they encounter." "That is the most wonderful news of all," Bekho said with deep satisfaction. "If our work here inspires others to show kindness and compassion, then my people's legacy will live on in ways I never imagined." The cleaning work had developed into a precise science. Dee had trained several other humans in his techniques, but he insisted on personally handling the most delicate sections. Each scale required individual attention, careful study, and gentle treatment. "We should finish your back and wings within the next month," Day estimated as he planned the remaining work. "Then just your tail and we will be completely done." "And then what?" asked Bekho with curiosity in his mental voice. "What happens when an ancient dragon is finally clean after 3,000 years? Day smiled as he continued his careful scrubbing. "Then I think we start the next chapter of your story. The one where you help us explore those hidden luminosites and share your people's wisdom with the galaxy." "A new beginning," the dragon mused. "I like the sound of that very much." As evening approached and the workday ended, Bekho's cleaned scales began their nightly light display. The chamber filled with soft luminescence that pulsed gently like a living heartbeat. It was beautiful and peaceful and full of promise for the future. "Tomorrow we tackle your left wing," Day said as he packed up his equipment. "I have a feeling that is going to be spectacular." "Everything is spectacular when shared with a true friend," Bekho replied with deep contentment. The final day of cleaning had arrived like a celebration that the entire galaxy was waiting to witness. 6 months had passed since Dr. Kim Day first offered to help the ancient dragon get clean. Now the crystal chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of worlds, all gathered to see the completion of the most remarkable restoration project in history. Day stood before the last small section of dirty scales on Bekho's tail tip. It was hard to believe that this tiny patch of grime was all that remained of the layers of dirt that had once covered the magnificent dragon's entire body. Everything else gleamed with pure white brilliance that seemed to contain all the colors of the rainbow. "Are you ready for this?" Dai asked his friend as he prepared the final spray of cleaning solution. Bekho's mental voice carried excitement and gratitude in equal measure. "I have been ready for 3,000 years, though I did not know it until you showed me what was possible." The assembled crowd watched in respectful silence as Day applied the cleaning solution to the final section and waited the required 15 minutes. When the time came for the last wash, he aimed his pressure washer carefully and triggered the spray. The final patch of ancient grime washed away, revealing the last few perfect scales beneath. As the water cleared, Bekho was completely clean for the first time in 3 millennia. The dragon rose to his full magnificent height, stretching wings that sparkled like captured starlight. The effect was beyond spectacular. Bekho's entire body glowed with soft inner light that filled the crystal chamber with dancing colors. His scales created patterns of beauty that seemed to shift and flow as he moved. This was no longer a creature hiding in shame and grief. This was a being of pure majesty and wonder. The crowd erupted in applause that echoed through the cavern for several minutes. Cameras flashed and recording devices captured every moment of the historic transformation. But Day only had eyes for his friend, watching with deep satisfaction as Bekho experienced the joy of feeling truly clean and beautiful again. "My dear friend," the dragon said, his mental voice reaching everyone present. 6 months ago I believed I was nothing more than a guardian of dead memories. Today I understand that I am something far more important. I am a bridge between the past and the future. Dr. Park Jisoo wiped tears from her eyes as she watched the magnificent display. "This is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen," she whispered to Day. "You have given him back more than his appearance. You have given him back his soul." The transformation was complete, but everyone knew this was not an ending. It was a beginning. Plans were already underway to explore the hidden Lumina sites that Bekho could now remember. The dragon had agreed to work with human scientists to unlock the secrets of his people's advanced technology. More importantly, the story of their friendship had inspired countless others throughout the galaxy. Reports were coming in daily of similar projects where humans had reached out to help other neglected or forgotten beings. The simple act of cleaning a dragon had sparked a movement of compassion that was spreading across known space. "What happens now?" asked a journalist from the Galactic News Network as she recorded Baekho's first interview. "As a fully restored dragon, now we begin the real work," Baekho replied as his scales pulsed with gentle light. "My people spent millions of years gathering knowledge about the universe. That knowledge was meant to be shared, not hidden. With my human friends, I will help unlock the secrets that can benefit all species." Dr. Song Minho had been monitoring the quantum activity in the dragon's scales throughout the final cleaning. "The information systems are now operating at full capacity," he reported with excitement. "We are detecting data streams that contain everything from star maps to medical research to artistic creations. This is like having access to the complete library of an advanced galactic civilization." The planetary government had already announced plans to build a permanent research facility around the crystal chamber. The site would be renamed the Lumina Institute for Interspecies Cooperation, with Baekho serving as the primary research partner and cultural ambassador. Dai had been offered the position of institute director, a role that would let him continue working with his dragon friend while overseeing the exploration of Lumina sites throughout the galaxy. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, and he had accepted without hesitation. "You know," Baekho said to Day as the crowd began to disperse and evening approached, "when I first saw you 6 months ago, I thought you were just another curious human who had stumbled into my resting place. I never imagined you would change my entire existence." Day smiled as he looked up at his magnificent friend. "I just saw someone who needed help. That is what humans do. We help each other, even when the other person happens to be a 200-meter dragon. And that," said Baekho with deep affection, "is why I believe the future will be brighter than the past ever was. Your species has something special. You see need and you respond with kindness. You see suffering and you offer comfort. You see potential and you work to help it flourish." As night fell over Altara Prime, the crystal chamber filled with the soft glow of Baekho's scales. The light pulsed gently like a living heartbeat, creating patterns of beauty that would inspire artists and dreamers for generations to come. The dragon who had spent 3,000 years in lonely darkness was now a beacon of hope for the entire galaxy. The knowledge of the Lumina would live on through him, but more importantly, the spirit of cooperation and friendship between species would continue to grow. "Thank you," Baekho said to Day as they settled in for their first night together as a completely clean dragon and his human friend. "Thank you for seeing who I could be instead of just who I was." "Thank you," Day replied, "for trusting me enough to let me help. This has been the greatest privilege of my life." Outside the chamber, the stars shone down on a galaxy that was a little brighter, a little more hopeful, and a lot more connected than it had been 6 months before. And at the heart of it all was the simple truth that sometimes the most profound changes begin with the smallest acts of kindness. The universe was indeed a better place when beings chose to care for one another. And somewhere among those distant stars, other forgotten souls were waiting for their own chance at renewal and friendship. The story was far from over. It was just beginning.